country, she had been prepared for this onslaught. Starving children gathered at spots along the railroad all the way from the port to Frankfurt, calling out to passengers for cigarettes and candy and sandwiches, never for money. That wouldn't do them any good. Bitte, 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 they cried in unison. Please, please, please. Emmy resented them. She hated them even, because they made her care, and Emmy didn't want to feel any kind of complex emotion for Germans, children or not. Her chest went tight as she pictured that moment of fixing Joseph's tie once more, his smile, the dark curl that fell over his forehead. "Don't you forget me," he'd said. A tease, a joke. But there had been a serious thread that ran through those words. They both knew his likely fate. Bitte, bitte, bitte! A sharp whistle cut through the pleas, and Emmy looked up into the eyes of a man holding a placard with her name scrawled across it. The begging children didn't scatter, just shifted their attention, and the man held out a package to the youngest one in the bunch with a single command. Share. They seemed to collectively decide they had gotten all that they would and scampered off after the rest of the passengers. The man watched them go, and Emmy watched the man. He was of medium height and medium build, with a medium brown hair color that matched medium brown eyes. Silver threaded through the strands at his temples, suggesting he was at least in his mid-30s. A constellation of freckles sat at the corner of his mouth, which was the only objectively interesting thing about his face. But there was a magnetism about him that was hard to look away from. Maybe it was her travel-induced delirium, but she had to admit that he did, in fact, look exactly like an academic who also punched Nazis in the name of defending art. That impression might have to do with the spiderweb of freshly scarred skin that peeked out from his collar, or the way he leaned much of his weight on his cane. He had seen action. When Emmy met his eyes, they were hard, but there was a slant to his lips as if he found her scrutiny amusing. She flushed and looked down, caught out. What assumptions was he now making about her? Emmy had never given much thought to her looks. She was unremarkable, but not unattractive, with a face that most people forgot a few minutes after meeting her. Throughout her life, she'd received the advice to skip dessert plenty of time. The one feature that garnered any attention, her thick, glossy black hair, was currently dull from travel, tucked back in a low chignon. For a silly moment, she wished she'd applied lipstick in the WC. "I'm Mrs. Clark," she said, after realizing they had been standing in a strange, weighted silence for too long. His half-smile became a full one that still didn't meet his eyes. Her own flicked down to his scars again, and she wondered if the flint in his personality was innate or forged through war. "Major Wesley Arnold," he said, his voice a lovely rumble, his accent American but hard to place beyond that. "At your service." He reached out a hand for her bag, and she fought the urge to refuse his help because of his cane. If he'd offered, he could handle it. "I hope your trip was uneventful," he said, stilted in that way of people who weren't natural conversationalists. She followed him into the street where an open-air jeep was waiting under guard by a young private. Quite. Emmy eyed the step up into the vehicle. There was no way she was going to climb in there in a graceful manner with this impractical skirt tight around her knees. How the Army thought this was a suitable uniform, she would never know. Women working for the war efforts should have been supplied with trousers. Before she could even make an attempt, Major Wesley Arnold's hands cupped her waist. He boosted her into the passenger seat with an ease that suggested a hidden strength not obvious to the casual eye. Emmy blinked, thrown once again. He'd handled the whole affair with an efficiency she found intensely refreshing. She had needed to get into the Jeep, and so he...
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.